Hello, CMB here for another RPG Fieldcraft. Today I'm going to jump into the Holy Grail for the Lost Ark of the Covenant RPG. Is it D&D? Is it the One Ring? Is it Shadowrun? Is it Pathfinder? Today we'll jump into it, at least in my opinion, what the best is. Alright, so obviously from this slide you can easily tell that in my opinion it's going to be Pathfinder 2e. Again, I know I said RPG, but honestly, D&D, Pathfinder 2, not really, reinforcing RPG or role playing with their mechanics. Both of them are more combat simulators. But I digress. This is about which RPG that is commonly out there, that is the best, and that is going to be Pathfinder 2. But why? That's the real question. So I'm going to break it down for why I think it is the best. The big one for me is that it's a fresh approach. It's not bound by legacy. It's not Forgotten Realms that has been so filled in that there's barely any parts for you to make your own adventures. And the fact that, honestly, it's very vanilla. It feels very samey, like, especially with 5e. It's mainly, the Sword Coast? We haven't really gone anywhere else. We haven't gone to the Eastern lands or even the Middle East comparison lands that they have there. It's very samey. The other thing that comes into mind, at least for me, is being a player that started out in 2e, is their approach to their problematic lore. So obviously, if you go onto Drive Through RPG, there's a content warning on the 2e stuff. There's also been a lot of rework in the lore and stuff in D&D 5e. That being said, I understand that it's problematic. We need to move forward. I just don't believe in rewriting what's already been written. So Pathfinder 2 kind of takes a different approach. So I know they had one piece of lore that was a little problematic, but instead of rewriting it, they're just not going to cover it going forward. So they just leave it where it was in the past, where it should be, and then moved on. The other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the fresh approach is going to be the massive and diverse setting. In their world of Galarian, it is very diverse. So, kind of how the Swordcast is a kind of small area with a couple of different big entities, Galarian kind of focuses on the inner sea region, which is a massive area. One that is kind of like a pseudo Europe, pseudo Africa. But if those aren't your flavor, there are many other continents on Galarian that could be the one for you. There's a Asian inspired area as well, and then different lands. There's like an Atlantis type area that's been sunken that you can jump into. So again, lots of stuff. From there, I jump into, honestly, the large amount of books, just overall. I mean, they've only been out for like 2 years and already have 18 books. It's pretty much split evenly between rules and setting books, but that's just a massive amount of content put out in a small span. It took D&D a very long time to get up to that count. In addition to rules and settings books, they also have a massive library of adventures. 8 adventure paths. Some of these could be 3 adventures for the path or 6 adventures for the path. If there are 3 adventure paths, they'll take characters from 1 to 10, and if there are 6, 1 to 20. And it totals out to, right now, 37, 38 adventures. Again, they're putting out more each month to these adventure paths. Additionally, there's 11 individual adventures. This is not including the beginner's box or a couple of the free day RPG scenarios. So again, just a massive amount of content. So just think of that going forward, that there's a lot of lore and rules mechanics that are out there and available to do many, many things. You want to have an undead familiar, or you want to be a skeleton yourself, they have rules for that. Additionally, on the lore side, you can also access the entire Pathfinder 1 Chronicles library, which is, I think, roughly about 100 different smaller splat books that have a bunch of lore on a bunch of different areas, cosmic areas, different realms, different lands, different organizations, different nations. It's just amazing the breadth that they have available for you as a game master in this game. Additionally, is just the quality and conciseness of design and writing. So when they write their products, like when you're reading through it, it makes sense. It's well put together. It's usually well thought out. Very much so, even in the adventure pass and other adventures. Which honestly is, I think, is why they're putting Abomination Balls out for 5e to show people that are playing 5e what an actual adventure that a professional company creates should look like. When I play these adventure paths or individual adventures, when I read through the book, I'm not spending 30 or 40 hours of time getting ready to just run the game like I did with Descent into Avernus or Rime of the Frost Maiden. The other thing is that it seems like there's a lot more concisement in their design and their focus on what they want the story or the book to be. Where it seems like at times adventures or books are just kind of thrown together by WotC and D&D, unfortunately. Case in point, again, Descent into Avernus, they had this great adventure down in hell, but because Baldur's Gate 3 is going to do their early access thing, we're going to make a Baldur's Gate 3, kind of city scenario, an adventure, and some lore, and put that out and just slap it on the front of it and kind of make it seem like it was supposed to be that way. From there, we go into deadliness. So again, comparison for D&D versus Pathfinder 2. D&D, it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. I'm going to hit this guy, he's going to drop, somebody's going to healing word him, they're going to be right back up. And that's going to go on pretty much every round. Not really that exciting. Versus in Pathfinder 2, once somebody goes down, they get the dying condition. When they come back up, they get the wounded condition. So if they're wounded 1 and they go back down to get a dying condition, it's going to be 1 + 1, so they're at 2. Once they hit 4, game over. That's all she wrote. So again, it kind of makes it a little bit more important, and it puts death on the table. So there's real consequences. And, kind of final consequences for the most part. I know there's magic, but for the main game, it is a lot more deadly. Additionally, the math is very tight. So as I was talking about previously with these adventure paths, some of them go from 1 to 20. But when you're playing these adventure paths all the way up to 20th level, the math still works. Your encounter rules still works. Unlike, again, D&D, where they don't even use the CR system at the game tables of the publishers. Like Mike Merle says he has his own homebrew one. Perkins has his own one. So again, that kind of tells you that, hey, we built this system, we gave it out to the public, but it doesn't really work. Same thing with monster design. There's pretty good instructions mathematically on how to build these monsters out versus, the non-spreadsheet form that actually WotC uses to make monsters. Here's some complicated, kind of halfway thrown together product that'll do it for you. So that's a big plus for me because combat at 1 is exciting, combat at 20 is exciting to play in or to run, and it's not a headache for your GM. From there, we're going to kind of jump into system overview. So with this, some things that I just want to talk about are kind of the first one, how's it to make a character? So in this setting, character generation is very fun and interactive and interesting. So you'll start off with a race, or in this case, what they call it, an ancestry in Pathfinder 2. That will give you some bonuses to abilities and options to take ancestry feats. Every character starts at 10 for all of their stats, and then these class and backgrounds will add different bonuses to ability scores and open them up for different feats. As you're picking feats one by one, it's very interesting and cool to see that you could have a party full of fighters, everyone could pick different ancestries and have different feats, so all of those fighters feel distinct. 2 points for me on this one. Like, for instance, D&D generation, there's not a lot of choices. Like, if you're a spellcaster, you get to pick spells, so that's kind of cool. But other than that, the big decision is what subclass am I going to take at level 3? Again, not very exciting. But here, each of them are dynamic. They're different. Every character can play the same class and support them different ways. They can even add to this with their archetype system, which is kind of their version, pseudo, of multi-classing. The thing with this is if you go by baseline, you can, instead of taking one of your class feats, you can take a feat in a different archetype. And these will allow you to do, for instance, with the fighter, you could take an archetype that is very similar to a cleric and then get access to healing spells. So you could make your holy fighter different than just the paladin. So it allows for a lot of interchangeability there. As we said before, mechanics support play at all levels, level 1 to 20. It's interesting. The math stays tight. It's easy to run. It's not going to be problematic. It's not going to be crazy. It's not going to break down as you go up to higher levels. The other thing that I really like about this is, with the 20 levels, I can play all of them. Unfortunately, again, on the flip side, when I look at Dungeons & Dragons, yes, they have 20 levels, but they don't support generally 20 levels. Usually 1 to 10, 1 to 13, maybe something like that. And then it seems like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're not going to generate it because people aren't playing it, but people aren't playing it because there's nothing that's already put out to do it. So it kind of flows right into each other. The next thing from there is proficiency ranks. So I really like this. There's untrained, trained, expert, master, and legendary. So with untrained, this is most of your physical skills that most people can do. Like anybody can do a climb check, and based off your physical skills, you may not succeed. Then at trained, expert, master, and legendary, as you gain ranks in some of these proficiencies, you unlock different abilities that you can do. Additionally, there are some abilities, or for instance, locks that require a higher level of training than just trained as you progress. So again, it makes sure that things can continue to escalate and still be challenging for your characters as they progress. And again, I'm going to say it because I like to say it, great quality, great design. Everything kind of works together to make a cohesive core, and then they build off of that with cohesive lore. So it works very well, and they're continuing to push out, again, a high tempo of quality products every month. From there, they have traits or tags on each of their weapons, spells, and actions. These are quick identifiers for you to know what they can and can't do, and it adds for some differences between different items. I'm going to jump in specifically and kind of zone in on weapons. So if I have a weapon, like a scimitar, it has a tag that as you attack with one strike, when you go the second strike, you get a bonus on the second strike because it has this sweep tag, because it's very fluid and it's supposed to be like whirling dervishes with the scimitars. Unfortunately, when I look at, for instance, D&D, in that system, unfortunately, it seems like most people look at the equipment list of weapons and armor and are like, okay, which one that I am proficient in has the highest hit die? Not what makes sense for the character or for the story. It's just hit die. So it's very weird that there's not more variation in those weapons to make them feel thematically different and how they work mechanically as well. Then the big one, 3-action combat. I love 3-action combat. The nice thing about this is it is not going to be your standard D&D combat, where everybody moves once, gets up to the creature, and then they're going to trade blows and things until one of them dies. In this, the big difference, and I think that helps promote the 3-action economy, is that not everyone has attacks of opportunity. So there's a lot of positioning and moving around the battlefield to get strategic bonuses from cover and concealment, or go and hide, and then attack from the shadows, things of that nature. It is very dynamic. The other cool thing is if your character wants to, they can attack 3 times the round, even at first level. That being said, there is a multi-attack penalty that will decrease your attacks. So first attack is made normally, then a -5, then a -10. So it does get harder, and it can be also -4 or -8 if it kind of has an agile trait. But with those, it makes more interesting combat. The other cool thing is that they have things like a knowledge check that allows you, or recall knowledge check, which allows you to recall something about the monsters you're fighting. It's very cool to be able to use your abilities in a dynamic way that positively affects the setting as well as the combat that is built into the worlds. So again, very exciting from that standpoint as well. Then I just want to cover some of the cool things with Pathfinder 2. So they have a thing called Archives of Nethys, which has all of the rules which are released under the OGL on the site for free. Between that and the lore on the Pathfinder wiki, you could theoretically, play a full game of Pathfinder 2 to test it out. Again, I do recommend buying the books because they're awesome, they're good quality. The other nice thing, especially if you're on a subscription plan, you will see that down at below at the bottom, you'll get free PDFs with those books. So again, you'll get the book and you'll get the PDF. The big bonus here is that the PDF isn't tied to some online service that may or may not exist or get sunset in the future. The PDF is yours. You can download it anytime and keep it forever. So again, a big plus. Additionally, I know that everybody likes D&D Beyond. Pathfinder is working on theirs, and they are getting close to full release of Pathfinder Nexus, which is done under Demiplane, and it is being created by Adam Bradford, the same individual that was the head lead over on D&D Beyond. So again, very exciting. The other cool thing is, again, they have full VTT support. The one I'm going to hone on here is going to be Foundry VTT, because all this stuff is under the OGL. When you go down and download the rule set for Pathfinder 2 and Foundry VTT, all the stuff is in there. You can make a character and play with the rules. There is a good group of creators continuously updating and improving that rule set. So you could just play with, again, Archive of Nessus, Pathfinder Wiki, and Foundry VTT and be fully sufficient to play a full game. The other cool thing is, again, I mentioned they do have hardcovers and they have PDFs. So if you want the core rulebook, it is a massive tome of over 600 pages at a pretty good price of $59.99. Additionally, if, again, you're more of the digital type person and you just like to read books on tablets, things of that nature, for a extremely reduced price of $14.99, you can get the PDF. Additionally, with PDF ownership, you can get discounts on VTT modules, which they are now officially releasing for Foundry VTT, as well as the other VTTs like Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, and additionally with the upcoming Pathfinder Nexus. For instance, I had a PDF and an adventure when I went into Pathfinder Nexus is going to be about $29.99, $24.99. After I synced my account, it was $9.99. Again, I just want to reiterate, the subscription is really cool. So pretty much you'll sign up on subscriptions, and if you get over 4, they'll give you an additional 15% off. But each month, they'll set you aside a cart. You put in your items there. Once they're ready to ship it, they'll ship that to your house. And when they ship it, you will also get free PDFs to your Paizo account, free to use. And then, if you need to, can use furthermore to get discounts, again, on VTTs and Pathfinder Nexus. So overall, a very, very cool thing. So like I was saying, again, in my opinion, PF2 is the clear winner. I know that D&D 5e is considered the world's best role-playing game, but in my humble opinion, quantity versus quality. Yes, they may have the numbers, but the quality is definitely on Pathfinder's side. If you want, please leave comments down below. Let me know what you think is the best RPG and why. And depending on the responses, I may jump into that and do a review and analysis of those different RPGs. And thank you, and always have a great day.